Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about how to overcome stress eating with Bettina Mackenbach from 12 Weeks to Wellness. So I'm really excited to have her here today. If you haven't met me, my name is Victoria Granger, and I am with Wellness Works Canada. So we are your nonprofit workplace health and performance association. So we support workplace health and wellness practitioners and employers in building healthy, high performing work cultures. And we also, when we're supporting workplaces, we help assess and transform and recognize employers for their work that they've been doing. And we specialize really just in bridging the gap between occupational health and safety, human resources, culture, and employee well-being and workplace performance. So we also, I just wanted to mention, we do have the only accreditation available in Canada for workplace health and performance practitioners. And so we have our certification, or sorry, our memberships, which are a prerequisite to go through the accreditation process, are actually 20% off for this month. So if you're interested in that, you can use the code SPRING 2021. Lastly, I just also wanted to mention that all of our all of our webinars are made possible by our members and our partners. And 12 Weeks to Wellness is a partner with Wellness Works Canada. And so we love working with them. And they have so many great things. And you'll learn some about more of the things that they're offering here at the end of this webinar as well. But if you aren't a member yet, please just check out our membership options to help support the work that we do. And then we give you all the resources and the tools and the connection and support that you need to build a healthy, high performing work culture as well. I have one quick last announcement before we get going. You may have heard that we have recently launched a national workplace health and performance charter. So it's the first of its kind, and its intent is to bring together CEOs who are committed to a healthy, high-performing work culture. And so we're bringing together these CEOs to share, to continue on their journey to learn, to grow and thrive through the disruption that we've been facing through the pandemic, and change is really the only constant. And also to collect and share evidence-based practices to really inspire a movement of health and performance. And that is really all in the aim of achieving our vision, which is a healthy population and a high performing economy. So if you're interested in signing the charter, no matter kind of what role you play or no matter where your journey is, you can go ahead and do it. There's no fee. We're really just aiming to create a movement, as I mentioned, to really inspire a healthier, higher performing work cultures and population. All right. Okay. So enough about that. So in terms of housekeeping, this webinar will be about an hour in length. And it is recorded, as you can see. We are going to save the questions until the end, but if you have a question that you want to put up so that you don't forget it, you can feel free to throw it in the chat, which is at the bottom, or the Q&A function, and then you'll have the opportunity to bring those up at the end, and we'll go through all of those. So without further ado, I want to welcome Bettina. So she is a registered dietitian, as well as a certified health and wellness coach. She's got over 15 years of experience. She's passionate about working with children, adults, and seniors on their specific wellness goals. Her expertise is in weight management, emotional eating, chronic disease management, stress, and work-life balance. And she's worked with thousands of clients through 12 Weeks to Wellness, which is a partner of Wellness Works Canada. And she's also an experienced and engaging speaker. So excited to have you here today with us, Bettina. So I'm just going to pass it on to you.
Hey, thank you, Victoria, for the introduction. So welcome, everybody, and good morning, and thank you for joining us here today. So lots and lots of information coming your way. It's quite action-packed, and I really try to make it very application-based. That's just how I like to do my webinars. And as I said, as Victoria said earlier, definitely, just add your questions to the chat box as they come so you don't forget. And I will definitely get to them towards the end. So what we're going to look at today is the relationship between eating and stress, and really how to promote physical, emotional, and mental resiliency during stressful times, so that we don't have to use food as a coping mechanism. And in having worked with of course hundreds of clients, especially during the last year when COVID started, a lot of the challenges that I'm seeing around eating, and especially stress eating, have changed. because again, a lot of us are working from home, so the challenges are a little bit different. And there's a lot of studies out there actually that suggest that one of the things that changes first when we're going through stressful times is our eating behavior. And as we all know, um, eating affects us on many, many different levels. It affects us on a physical level. Obviously, once we start gaining weight, there's a lot of risk factors for that. It can affect our sleep, our energy levels, how well we can focus. So, and of course, just how we're feeling about ourselves. So on an emotional and mental level. And so today, we're going to look at challenges, but also, instead of challenges, I really like to look for the opportunity during stressful times, because there's always an opportunity. We're going to focus on creating new routines to set yourself up for success, which I believe is really important, that we sort of set that framework and look at the bigger picture versus just jumping into, creating healthy habits, and really looking at how do we set ourselves up for that during stressful times, because we absolutely can. And then, of course, we're going to look at emotional versus mindful eating. So intuitive eating as one of the strategies for stress eating. We're going to look at specific nutrients to help with the resiliency to stress, and some other tips. The specific connection between anxiety and nutrition, and then a meal plan. And we'll also look at some other things towards the end, such as intention setting and what that is all about. So there's lots and lots of different causes of stress, and everybody experiences stress a little bit differently. So some of us might feel, depressed, some feel just overwhelmed, might make us feel fatigued, anxious. And one of the things is really, it is normal to feel stress. And to some degree or other, because stress is always there, and stress is really change. And what it is that living with uncertainty, that is the biggest cause of stress, because there's that unpredictability, and we want things to be predictable. Disruption of routines, we've certainly experienced that during the past year, where we had a lot of our routines disrupted. All of a sudden we have everybody at home, and we still have to work with our children there, can't go to the gym, lots of different things. And then oftentimes, when I talk to clients, I hear them saying, I'm just completely overwhelmed. My thinking is flighty, I can't focus, I just have too many things on my plate, I don't even know where to start. Poor work-life balance, again, when we're just working too many hours, but we're not really, having a life besides that. Of course, conflicts in the workplace or at home are common causes, lots of other things that you can probably add to this list. So, but as I said earlier, in this moment, when there are stressful times, we always want to look at the possibility and really embracing change, which is really, really hard for a lot of us, because again, it usually means that change is about to happen, and we'll just have to learn how to move through it. So one of the things that I want to talk about, as I said earlier, that the one thing about stressful times is the uncertainty. And so really what we want to do to set ourselves up a little bit better is to create routines, which are even more so important during this time. And our body loves routines. And not just our body, it just gives us that predictability. And so I'm going to talk specifically about some ideas here for evening routines, morning routines. And again, you might already have your own routine. So for example, a really good one is going to sleep at around the same time every night. As I said, the body loves predictability. It really, really helps. Practicing gratitude, a really good one as well. Where really at the end of the day, what you're doing, you're scanning your day. You're not scanning your day for what you didn't do, what you left on your to-do list, what didn't go well, but you're scanning your day for what went well and what is good. And so when writing gratitudes, I always suggest not just saying what you're grateful for, but because. So add that because to it. It's just really, really powerful. As well as maybe writing down some intentions for the next day. And ideally, actually, I'd rather do that in the morning than at night, but some people like to do it at night. And I do have a whole slide on that, on intention setting towards the end. So we'll look at that. And then, making that transition time before sleep meaningful. So in other words, trying to get off the electronics, it can make a big difference. And it's really up to you how you spend that time. And then a morning routine. So same thing, not just having that evening routine, what's your unique routine for the morning? Again, trying to wake up around the same time, maybe, starting with waking up your body, whether that's doing some breathing, whether it's doing yoga. I mean, it could just be 5 minutes of doing something, doing a pose, going for a walk, or, how do you wake up your body? Reading over the intentions for the day, perhaps if you hadn't set them already, set them now. And then having breakfast. Again, breakfast is extremely important. And I'll have a slide on that later where I'm talking about how the brain actually cannot store carbohydrate, cannot store glucose. So it will run on empty unless we're really feeding it something early in the morning. Just sets ourselves up much better for the day. We're going to look at stress and eating. Again, as we all know, to some degree or other, we've all experienced that. And it's so interesting when I speak to people, right? Oftentimes they tell me these stories about when they were children and now, their grandmother or their mother said, hey, you're not feeling good. Here's a little bit of ice cream, here's a little bit of that. So oftentimes we remember that. Where did it all start? And again, one of the things I want to say is that it is actually normal to do that sometimes. And, what is really important is to have that compassion with ourselves, and that we don't want to judge ourselves, but really be gentle with ourselves during moments of stress. And so let's look at stress and how it impacts appetite. Because as I said earlier, during stressful times, the first thing that will change is usually eating behavior. And so there is actually a distinction between short-term stress and long-term stress. So when there's short-term stress, is that in that moment, usually digestion shuts off, appetite shuts off because due to that fight or flight response. We're now in the sympathetic nervous system, adrenaline rushes through the system, and we're really not interested in eating. But when we're going through long-term stress, more of a chronic stress, cortisol gets secreted. And that brings up a whole host of other things, which means increased hunger. And also we're looking more for the high fat, high sugar foods. And so stress affects food preferences for sure. And so when we look at emotional eating, so we're distinguishing between physical hunger. And so oftentimes I ask people, so for you, if you ask yourself, what does physical, how do you know that you're hungry versus emotionally hungry? So physical hunger, comes on gradually. And emotional hunger, craving, comes on quite quickly. And physical hunger, usually we're not hungry for a specific food. We're just hungry. We feel it in the body, maybe it's a rumbling in the stomach, feel irritable, feel like we just really need something in that moment. But emotional hunger comes on really quickly, and it's usually for that specific food. So when you're emotionally hungry, let's say, and you have in mind, oh, I know exactly what I want. I want that specific chocolate bar. And if I came to you and I said, hey, here's a piece of fruit, you'd say, no, I don't want that piece of fruit. That's certainly not physical hunger. Mouth hunger is altogether a different hunger. That's more when we're eating and we want to eat more, even though we're full, beyond the fullness level or hunger level because food tastes so good. That's mouth hunger. And again, as I said, oftentimes it can be, emotional eating can be normal, a reaction to stress, as uncertainty evokes many feelings. And we looked at that earlier. And unfortunately, we will be craving the highly palatable, high sugar, high fat foods. But it can become very addictive, again, if we're not dealing with it. So we're going to look at some strategies for emotional eating. And actually what I do with clients during some of my coaching calls, especially the ones that want to address that area, is that we're working through that. I work through that with the client where, I ask them to kind of recall a moment of when they were having cravings. And again, asking them, well, were you physically hungry? Were you emotionally hungry? So you always want to ask that first. And of course, if you are physically hungry, absolutely, your body says, hey, I want some food. So you want to give that to yourself. But then really what we want to do when we know that it is not physical hunger, but it is an emotional hunger. So the root is very different here, is that we want to check in with ourselves. And that's usually not something that we're being taught or, we're really used to, is to actually check in and say, hey, how am I actually doing? How am I feeling? So ask yourself in that moment, how am I actually feeling? Am I overwhelmed? Am I tired? Am I anxious? What's going on? And then once we've kind of determined it, and then really there's no right or wrong here, is to say, so when I feel that way, what do I need? Because if I had said I'm hungry, I'm physically hungry, I need nourishment. But I didn't say that. I said in this example, I said, well, I'm bored. I'm really bored, which means, and so then you ask yourself, so then what is the need? What do I need when I feel bored? One thing, and oftentimes people will say, well, I need a distraction. I say, really? You need a distraction? Because what you need normally when you're bored is to immerse yourself in an activity that you enjoy so that you're more engaged in the moment. Because when we're bored, we're not engaged in the moment. And so what happens oftentimes is that, well, we want to engage ourselves and we do that with food. So that hand to mouth motion, the act of chewing, and we do that oftentimes while we're watching TV. I mean, we've all been there, right? And then it becomes the mindless eating. So instead, once we realize, okay, I'm bored, and really what the need is to engage myself. I'm watching TV, but I'm really not engaged. Is that so? What could be a step that I can take right now in the direction of listening to the need? Again, versus reaching for food. So I'm just going to give this example here where, what I can do, because I have a piano, is that I might go and play the piano for 5 or 10 minutes. And it makes me feel good because it's something that I love to do. And obviously it wouldn't be practicing, it would be playing a piece that I actually know, that I'm familiar with. Some other clients, what they've done is, for example, they work on a puzzle because that's very kinesthetic using your hands. That can really, really help so you don't reach for the food. If you enjoy puzzles, obviously, again, as I said, you wouldn't be using this as a distraction. And of course, it all depends on what the emotion is. The action will be very different because the need is different. I've had actually one client who came up with these flashcards, and she was anticipating certain feelings that she knew would make her eat at one point or the other. And I liked her idea. So she maybe, put down boredom on one, feeling overwhelmed on the other, and tired on the other one. And then she came up with the different action steps depending on the need, which was pretty neat. The next strategy that I'd like to go over here is more for, being more mindful and being more of an intuitive eater, which can be very helpful. And this is really a lot for overeating, because of course a lot of clients will come and say, I have a really hard time. I tend to overeat, especially at dinner time. So oftentimes I pull out the hunger fullness scale. So at the one end of the spectrum, we got ravenous, and we all know what happens if we wait too long. Let's say we go 5 or 6 hours, or some people go 8 hours or so, and then they're ravenous. Well, what happens is that first of all, we're going to crave carbohydrates, right? Because as your brain is actually going to crave. Remember what I said earlier is that your brain cannot store glucose. So it needs that constant supply. And that's really what happens here. And then you will most likely eat faster. And so it actually takes 20 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain that you're full. Now, if I finish my first plate in 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, that connection hasn't taken place. So I may think, well, wait a second, I can go for seconds. Maybe I can even go for thirds. And then maybe after half an hour finally sets in and I'm already at a 7. I'm very full now. Maybe I'm at an 8, not feeling so good, right? And we've all been a 10. We've all been there where we're sick to our stomach. And there's a lot of mouth hunger with that because it just tastes so good and we just couldn't stop. So, so it's, so what we want to kind of do here is to, oops, is to perhaps, at the beginning of the meal, is to ask ourselves, so where am I on that hunger scale? Am I very hungry? Am I ravenous? And experiment with different hunger levels and when to start eating. And then also experiment, 5 minutes into the meal. Okay, am I getting fuller? Am I slowing down my eating? And experimenting also with different fullness cues. What does it feel like being at a 6 versus an 8? So ideally, I want to say we want to stop eating when we're kind of between a 5 and a 6, so between feeling satisfied and feeling full, and just kind of finding that sweet spot. And that might take some time to actually experiment with that. And so one of the things that we can do to help us slow down the eating, because I was mentioning that earlier, is that to start off with a smaller plate. So you just start off with a smaller plate and fill that up, eat that first, and then wait 20 minutes. So walk away, do something else, come back, and then ask yourself, am I still physically hungry? Do I actually need more food? And interestingly enough, when I have clients do that experiment, they'll come back and say, you know what, actually, I noticed I was full. Wow, this was great. I was actually full. I didn't need to eat more. Where normally I was already on my second portion, just walking away and just taking those 20 minutes. Of course, another strategy would just be to slow down eating, which is extremely difficult for most of us. So literally where you put the fork down after every bite. Sometimes I even ask clients to do the experiment, the mindful eating experiment, for example, eating an apple. And when they do that, or just all together when they're slowing down their eating, I always hear, and I've experimented with that myself, of course, is that I need to eat less. So when I eat slower, when I slow down, I'm satisfied faster. And it's a very different experience. So some other eating tips during stressful times, and this is really important, because when we're stressed, it's almost like we have to organize ourselves better, because otherwise things just fall apart. At least that's what I experience. So planning and prepping meals ahead of time is even more so important. And because during stressful times, again, the body is not focused on digestion, we actually ideally want to eat less and rather more often. So instead of eating, huge lunch and a huge dinner and no breakfast, rather eating more often and having some snacks in between and smaller meals. It will just help, especially with our energy levels. And want to minimize highs and lows in energy, and especially blood sugar levels, because when we have the spikes and then we have the lows, what happens is that it can really increase anxiety. And so, as I mentioned before, eating a balanced breakfast, and we'll look at some examples later for that. So what could meal planning look like? For example, I always like the idea of brainstorming a list so that you have that list and that's your running list, and you just rotate that. And then of course you can add things to that list. So you brainstorm with yourself or your family, 10 to 15 ideas. And then maybe, chopping veggies on the weekend. Because I know for myself, say I have hummus, but I don't have the veggies chopped. Guess what? I'm going to use the crackers. I mean, I wouldn't start peeling and cutting, 5 p.m. at night when I want to have a snack. And sometimes what can also really, really help is to prep something ahead of time. So maybe make one slow cooker meal for the week and then freeze some of it. And then, of course, having a backup plan. So always having some staples in the house. For example, I always have, canned salmon or tuna or black beans and feta cheese that I can quickly put together into something, or like eggs, having eggs. So as I said earlier, we want to minimize blood sugar highs and lows, because especially when we're experiencing lows, we could feel anxious, as I said earlier, we could feel extremely hungry, irritable, getting a headache. It's quite an uncomfortable feeling. So that's why trying to eat every 3 to 4 hours, little snacks, so not skipping meals, and again, definitely not overeating. And as I said earlier, the brain, unlike muscle, cannot store carbohydrates. So it needs that constant supply of glucose, and we're responsible for that. And so we want to eat every 3 to 4 hours. And then really what will help us is to incorporate some protein and some healthy fats. So your nuts, your seeds, your nut butters, your avocado, those are all really good other sources that help to give you that staying power. Besides protein, we can add that to snacks. And then diets that are higher in fat can actually decrease performance and sort of make you feel tired. So that's saturated. Those are animal fats compared to the fats that I mentioned before, the more the monounsaturated fats. And so these are some healthy snack ideas. I think it's important just to give you some, actual practical ideas here. So for example, it could be easy as cheese and nuts, or making, those protein bites that everybody makes now with peanut and almond butter. They can be really nutrient dense. Some people even add protein powder to them. Hummus is one of my favorite ones with cut up veggies again, but I have to cut them out on the weekend because I know that I will not do that in the afternoon when I'm already hungry, ready for a snack. So I need to have it ready. Cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, lots and lots of good ideas here. And they all have protein and or healthy fats, if you notice, together with a fruit or vegetable. And water, very, very important to have that water, to be hydrated. Just makes us feel better, gives us that energy, helps us actually feel full as well. And so a lot of people I notice are getting coffee when they're, during stressful times, and that is dehydrating. So we want to be very, very mindful of that. And it's hard sometimes to get into that hydration habit. So what we might have to do is to actually set a pop-up reminder on your screen, or set a reminder, on your phone, and every hour or two, or have a water app to remind yourself. Because if you're already thirsty, it means you're dehydrated already. And aim for about 2 liters or so. And decaffeinated tea, actually, so herbal tea counts. So we can definitely use that as well. So here are some more tips to create a healthy relationship with food. So putting the fork down after each bite can help. Sometimes I use chopsticks, especially when I eat rice, because I'm not very good with chopsticks, so that slows me down. I talked about the 20-minute method. Maybe just, turning off all electronics, and just make the space where you're eating, kind of a calming environment, ideally sitting at the table, not standing. I know some people have their lunches or so even in front of the desk. So we want to try to avoid that if possible, to again eat more mindfully and just be present and really taste the food and all the different sensations that come with it. And then ideally making dinner your smallest meal. You want to help your body to really, when you sleep, that you rejuvenate versus digesting all night. Sometimes if we have a really heavy dinner, let's say we had a steak with potatoes or something like that, it's quite heavy. It can take up to 14 hours to digest. So you can imagine how you might feel in the morning after a meal like that. So what we're going to look at now are specific nutrients that can help ease anxiety. Some vitamins here, we're looking at a folic acid found in your legumes, your beans, lentils, and chickpeas, your eggs or your leafy greens. As you notice, eggs are showing up quite a lot here. So they're really good. They have B12, which that's really important in energy metabolism. And of course, if you're vegan or vegetarian, you would get your B12 from nutritional yeast, which is an excellent source. And choline, a vitamin that is not talked about too much, but it's found in eggs and peanuts. So another good one. And then we have some minerals. So magnesium is a mineral that helps to relax the muscles in the body. So oftentimes I even suggest it to help people sleep better, to use that 2 hours before going to sleep. We can also find it naturally versus getting it from a supplement. So avocado is full of magnesium, nuts, especially cashews, seeds, and again, your legumes. Zinc is another really good nutrient. Omega-3 fatty acids is extremely important for brain health, very anti-inflammatory, found in the fatty fish. So your salmon, mackerel, herring, tuna, ground flax seeds. You can actually get all of your omega-3s if you use 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of ground. It has to be ground, so you absorb the omega-3s. Almonds and walnuts and hemp hearts are another really good source, as well as dark and leafy vegetables. And of course, if you, let's say, really want to make sure you're getting it on a daily basis, a supplement can work as well. I always prefer to get it from food because, again, the nutrients, work synergistically, but sometimes, a supplement might be easier. So you make sure you're getting it consistently. And we're looking at the amino acids. So tryptophan is a big one. And we all are familiar with, when we eat a turkey dinner, it makes us feel tired. So that's what tryptophan does. It's a precursor of serotonin, so it actually helps to calm us down. So again, lessen the anxiety. Or, eggs, same, have tryptophan, pumpkin seeds as well. And then antioxidants. So vitamin E, again, found in a couple of nuts here, vitamin C, carotenoids, and then flavonoids. So green tea is one of them here. So really, getting a good combo of all these different nutrients and vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. And so really good idea then to start your day with tryptophan. So let's say, having some eggs and then having that with some avocado, which again gives you the magnesium, and including a source of omega-3 fatty acids daily, whether it's ground flax, which could also be added to a smoothie, whether it's nuts or seeds, which could be easily added to a salad. It could also be put in, I put it oftentimes with Greek yogurt, super easy to do that. To really, what we're trying to do here is to avoid the high sugar foods, because it will spike glucose, spike our blood sugars, and to contribute to really, we're feeling more anxious. And then it comes usually crushing down the blood sugars right after it spikes, as well as processed foods. So a lot of and some people are more sensitive than others. So it can be linked to irritability. People get headaches oftentimes when they, especially with MSG or artificial sweeteners, GI symptoms, and also increased anxiety, as well as I mentioned the hydration earlier. So actually, when you're mildly dehydrated, it could cause irritability. And then for those of you who like their coffee, so when you get 12 ounces, it gives you about 250 milligrams. And starting off at about 500 milligrams, it is associated with increased anxiety. And for some individuals, it could be less than that. So we want to be very, very mindful of that, to maybe reducing the coffee when we're feeling anxious, we're having more stress going on, and just making sure we're drinking more water. Because when somebody has, 5 cups of coffee a day, which I do have some clients that have a lot of coffee, it's hard for me to say to them, well, just have more water, on top of the coffee. That's a lot of fluid. That's a lot of volume. So it's almost like we have to decrease the coffee and increase the water, kind of find that balance. And then prebiotics, because prebiotics, again, that whole gut-brain connection. So choosing more, types of vegetables and fruits and whole grains and fermented foods like the kefir, the kimchi, things like that. And of course, there's some great supplements as well that have prebiotics as well, that can really help the gut and help the brain. So this is just an example here. Mentioned earlier, a great breakfast that has some of these, nutrients that can support us during stressful times would be eggs, or if you're vegan or vegetarian, like a tofu scramble. Would have an avocado, then you could have a slice of whole grain bread with that if you like. A snack could be a plain Greek yogurt or a cottage cheese, again full of protein, with a healthy fat, so the pumpkin seeds, and then some berries for some good antioxidants. And then lunch, again, we're trying to balance it out between, healthy carb, and with a quarter of the plate coming from the carbohydrate, as the New Canada Food Guide has the sort of the balanced plate visual. So you'd have some quinoa, which, by the way, I love using leftovers or repurposing ingredients from dinner. So using repurposed quinoa, brown rice, or whatever it was from dinner, and then adding my protein, which in this case was chickpeas, because I didn't have a leftover from dinner. So I just opened a can of chickpeas. And then maybe, or leftover salmon, sunflower seeds, and maybe have an avocado, mix it all together. Could be a store-bought vinaigrette, your own vinaigrette, and that would be a really, really good grain-based salad with a lot of vegetables added to it. So some raw veggies. And then another afternoon snack could be a protein bite, like I was mentioning earlier. That's, can give you really good energy. And then having a smaller dinner, ideally, at the end of the day. And this is actually quite an interesting study. I found that a couple of years ago, where they looked at antioxidant levels of individuals in this study after a stressful event. And the antioxidant levels plummeted after 2 hours. And it took actually 3 days for them to return back to normal. So that just tells us how important antioxidants are. They're really essential to healthy immune system. But when we're stressed, even more so, it is important that we do eat healthy. And again, the planning comes in here. So if I'm stressed and I'm focusing on so many other things, if I'm not planning and I'm not setting myself up, it's going to be very, very difficult. Again, that whole overwhelming comes in there. And then there's some additional nutrients to help with stress and boost the immune system. So our B vitamins here, vitamin C, really important for the immune system, which also helps with the absorption of iron, especially for those that are vegetarian or vegans. So let's say you had your legumes, your beans, lentils, and chickpeas. You want to always combine them at the same meal with a source of vitamin C. So say, you had your beans, you'd add some tomatoes or bell peppers, and that will help with the absorption. Because again, iron is so important in energy metabolism. And so iron is, if we're iron deficient, we're feeling very fatigued. We talked about magnesium already. There's a supplement called Calm, which is a powder form. I find that one can be extremely useful, again, during stressful times. It also, can help you fall asleep. It actually also helps people with constipation. So you want to make sure you're not using too much, because it can have an opposite effect. And then we mentioned earlier the omega-3 fatty acids, which are really important for brain health. And so one other thing that I'd like to talk about is, and I mentioned it earlier, when I sort of, set that whole framework, I said how important it is, to set up those routines, like the morning routine and the evening routine. And so instead of goal setting, I make a distinction between goal setting and intention setting. So what I sometimes suggest people to do, whether you're going through a stressful time or not, is to set intentions. It's really powerful, and it really helps to keep you on track and gives you that accountability. It's almost like you're coaching yourself. And then you could say, this is just an example, you could say my intention for this day is to go for a 20-minute walk after lunch. Well, that sounds like a goal, but what we're doing now, we're connecting with, why would we even want to do that? Because if we're setting a goal, we're not necessarily connecting with the why. Therefore, it's a big chance we're not going to do it, especially if somebody else told us, well, you should be doing that. even more so we don't want to do it. So what we do here, we're saying, well, why is that important? So this example, my intention for the day is to go for a 20-minute walk after lunch because this will give me energy for the rest of the afternoon, make me feel good as I'm moving, makes me feel accomplished, good about myself, and knowing that I'm on track and taking care of myself. So this is much more powerful. So, and setting one intention, it could be 3, again, not too many. Every day they might be different, or there might be similar intentions. This can really, really help you keep yourself accountable and keep you on track. The other thing that I like to suggest, and this is more a routine for the nighttime, is what you would do. You would count your wins at the end of the day, because the brain is just set up to look for what is not right. So in other words, we're focusing on, oh no, I didn't get to this, I didn't do that, oh, I forgot about this. But really what we're trying to do here is to, what actually did go well? It's so interesting. Sometimes when I get on follow-up calls and I ask them, well, how did it go? And the client will say, it didn't go well. No, it didn't go well. And I say, well, tell me just one thing that went well. And interestingly enough, once they've told me that one thing, all of a sudden they realize, well, wait, there's more, there's this and that. And then they realize what they were actually trying to say to me, that they didn't do it perfectly. They didn't do it 100%. Therefore, it didn't go well. So it's just really how to look at it. Is the glass empty? Is it half full? So really, looking at it differently. So what we're doing then, we're being really mindful and looking at what went well. Ideally, you want to take a journal, you want to write this down every night. And so what it is, we're building on these quick wins, and it might be very much the same every night. Drank so much water, I moved today, doesn't matter. It tells you you're on track, you're holding yourself accountable, and really, that whole internal motivation, right? Where we're just motivated, we're connected. That's why we're doing the intentions to the why. Why are we even doing it? Why does it matter? So just want to hear from you, and maybe you can put it in the chat box a little bit later, is what is one step from all the things that we've talked about today that you're going to take today? Anything that maybe was kind of rang a bell and you say, yeah, this is really something that I want to work on. This somehow touched something in me. I'd like you to share that. And then before we get to the questions, I just want to very, very briefly talk about 12 Weeks to Wellness in collaboration with Curtis Health, the virtual wellness programs that we offer. So we have a one-stop digitalized wellness solutions that includes a comprehensive wellness portal. And on that portal, you find gamified fitness and wellness challenges. We have a lot of modules. Nutrition, the latest one is on mindfulness, very interactive modules. Fitness and wellness library as well. Online assessments. We have a health and well-being assessment, resiliency assessments that are part of that. Personal training, as well as health and nutrition consulting. And we're also offering group coaching now for companies. Live stream group classes as well as webinars. So literally a one-stop for a lot of things. And then our latest endeavor that we have created is a membership site called My Wellness Nation. And My Wellness Nation is a safe space for people to change their lifestyle habit, literally one habit at a time, through a supportive community. So it's really based on, like-minded people getting together in My Wellness Nation. And what we offer here are monthly group coaching sessions, again, designed to help people, hold them accountable, as well as a virtual coaching pathway. So instead of working with a coach one-on-one, which of course we offer as well, but you actually work through the pathway on your own. And it's a step-by-step process where you're going to be connecting with what you really want for yourself, coming up with a plan that is really based on your values, looking at your values, looking at your strengths, and looking at your limiting beliefs. And so it's as I said, it's a step-by-step process, as well as the supportive community forum, which on the forum you find like-minded peers, dietitians, wellness coaching, and personal trainers, and you can communicate with them, asking questions. So check us out at mywellnessnation.com. So, time for questions. I think I left enough time. So, I'd love to get some questions. You can ask them in the chat box, or if you'd like, you could also unmute yourself.
That was really great. Thank you so much, Bettina. I took a lot of tips away myself, and yeah, we have actually quite a few questions that have been coming
Hey,
in as you
perfect.
were going. Yeah. So one, it was near the beginning. You were talking about developing a reflection ritual at the end of the day, and her thought was, what do you think about having this reflection ritual at the end of the day, at the end of the week, and a yearly reflection?
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that idea. See, for me, I completely agree that at the end of the day, like the counting your wins, and I actually like that where you're not just doing it on a daily basis, but maybe doing it right, just like when you set goals, you do your 6 months goals and the yearly goals. So I love that idea.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a great idea, and it
Mhm.
leads to something bigger and keeps your, and like you can celebrate the little wins, but
Focus,
then,
exactly, keeps you
yeah,
focused. But when you
yeah,
do it on a daily basis, it kind of really keeps you on track.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Because sometimes we don't realize that little things, right? They really lead to bigger changes. Yeah.
Exactly, right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I love everything you were talking about gratitude. The more and more I've been seeing so much research on how it can change our brain structures and our thoughts and positivity and everything. So, yeah, so many great tips. Another question, do you have any information on intermittent fasting and stress? And does that hurt or help cortisol levels?
Yeah. So I knew I would get a question on intermittent fasting. You know what? So it's really hard to answer that question. I can only say this is that intermittent fasting doesn't work for everybody. So it's almost like you have to try it out, because I know in some individuals that do experiment fluctuations in blood sugars, it will be extremely
Doesn't
uncomfortable.
work for me.
Not exactly, not for me either. So it won't work for that person. Other people just tell me they're thriving, they're feeling more
Mhm,
energy. It works for them.
mhm.
It works great. Is it going to necessarily lead to weight loss if it's for weight loss? And I know this question is not about weight loss. I would say not necessarily. Can it help with stress? Again, it's very individual. It's almost like you have to try it out. So will it do anything with cortisol levels? Again, I don't know that. I haven't looked that much into it, but um, again, I would say you have to decide that on an individual basis.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, for sure, right? And those sugar drops and everything, and yeah, can change a
That's the
person's
thing.
mood and
Exactly.
irritability. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mhm.
So I had another question about the prebiotics. So is kombucha considered a prebiotic?
It is. It could be used as a prebiotic. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because I know a lot of clients who use it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Another one here about the distraction. So love that, like pausing when you eat or when you're hungry, trying to figure out what type of hunger it is, and then deciding, and then maybe distracting yourself. So for yourself, playing the piano or different things. Is kinesthetic better? Is a kinesthetic distraction versus, I don't know, going outside or um, reading
Very,
or.
very good question. Very good question. So this is the thing. Again, I think it's in the moment that that individual needs to decide how do they want to engage themselves, because the need might be more on a kinesthetic level where you need to move. It's almost like you need to take that movement break. If your energy is stagnant, say you've been sitting all day, and
Mhm,
then you want to eat for emotional reasons. So it might have to be movement.
mhm.
But it could also be something different, right? It could also be more of a, doing a mindfulness practice in that moment.
Yeah.
So, and again, maybe trying out different things and listening to your body. Do you feel like you need to move your body in that moment?
Mhm,
Or is your energy stagnant mental energy, which means, maybe work on something creative in that moment. Like for me, going and playing the piano and then coming back,
mhm.
it helps me focus again,
Yeah.
right? I've noticed that many times.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, great tips. It's all, and that's why changing habits is so hard. And that's why it's nice to have a coach, somebody like you, or joining one of these programs, right? That can be so
And
helpful.
this is the other thing, and I didn't say that earlier, it just comes to mind, is that, sometimes we want to anticipate almost these drops in energy, or these, especially in the afternoon, where we do feel that, that energy that is kind of stagnant. We've all been sitting. I mean, sometimes we sit for 8 hours, literally, right? So taking the breaks, not waiting until you're like, oh my God, I think I need that chocolate right now, but anticipating it and saying, okay, I'm gonna take that break.
Yeah.
Know where I'm going to be moving. Like, for example, I'm just going to use an example here. I found this really great walking video, because sometimes I feel like going out with my dog takes too long. So I found this great walking video. I have my yoga mat and I do that. And I love the music. It gives me that boost.
Yeah.
Sometimes I only do it for 3 minutes, but it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
So
Just a move, right?
that's enough. Two,
Yeah.
3 minutes, it's enough. Just
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially when we're sitting all day, and for people who are working remotely, for any of those sitting jobs, we don't even have to walk down the hall from one meeting to another. Like, we're not, like, there's nowhere to go. So those 3 minutes, yeah, they mean it. They make
It
a
makes a
difference and
huge
distract.
difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because
So it
that's
doesn't
what our
have
body's
to be a
craving.
full blown 15, 20, 30 minute walk, just getting up and do something fun. You see, that
Yeah.
music really, it really does it for me.
That's for doing something you enjoy. Yeah. That's a
Exactly.
key
That's what
too,
it's
right? Not
about.
something you hate, or that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Another question about how do you have any advice for someone who struggles with eating enough protein?
Okay, not eating enough protein. Yes. Okay. So as I said earlier, right, there's a lot of different sources of protein. So when you look at the snacks, so it's not just coming from, your usual animal protein, your fish, your meat, and all that.
Mhm.
So nuts actually give you protein. You have protein seeds. You have protein in dairy. So as I said earlier, your Greek yogurt, your cottage cheese, and you get it from your legumes. They are considered a complex carbohydrate, but they do give you, like, if you were on a vegetarian or vegan diet, that's one of your great sources of protein. So
Mhm.
having roasted chickpeas, even, for a snack, or, having that for dinner or lunch. I always say, to get enough protein, you probably need about a cup cooked of these legumes. And I find that sometimes when people, are deficient, when they're using too little of that, of course, tofu can be a source. Sometimes we do have to add protein powder. So when people are struggling and they're just not getting enough protein, and their goal is, for whatever reason, they want more protein or maybe need more protein, that's sort of the last resort where I say, okay, maybe we need to add it to a smoothie. So, but I prefer not to go that route.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I've heard that Canadians in general typically eat enough protein, but for others it's harder for sure for
It
different.
definitely
Yeah.
is hard. Yeah. And I forget eggs. Eggs is a great one too.
Yeah, eggs were in everything there. I noticed in a lot of they have a lot of the different
I know
factors.
a lot of the good nutrients. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So I think that's it for questions. I think everybody and I as well definitely really appreciated all of the tips and tools around reducing stress and anxiety and the vitamins and the minerals and everything. And I didn't realize dehydration can cause irritability. So that was a yeah,
Absolutely.
a
So
good
I don't know
learning.
if anybody wants to kind of, because I always like to end in, I like to kind of post the call to action. So what is one action? What is one takeaway, from our time today? If you want to also quickly put that in the chat box.
Oh, awesome. I see lots coming up here around.
I always like to hear that. What are people taking
Yeah,
away?
taking a break before going back for a second helping, being more mindful when I eat. It's not a race. There's a great article here, actually shared as well. Um, setting more intention and just having those routines, slowing down eating, going to fill my 2-liter bottle of water to drink that every day. Make a commitment to eat larger, more nutrient dense breakfast and reducing portion sizes at dinner. Yeah, we have it backwards, right? We always eat these big meal dinners instead of it should be the other way around. Eat like, yeah, a king at breakfast, queen at lunch, and a potter for dinner. I heard that long
Right. And then
time ago. I think
remember that, and I actually did mention that earlier, is like, 50% of your lunch plate and dinner plate, make it vegetables. And I always say for lunch, that's why I love the grain-based salads, making it raw vegetables, because it really gives you energy. And
Yeah.
because you have to chew so much, it actually gives your brain that sense, hey, I'm eating a lot because you're chewing. It's
Hmm.
just that whole, motion of it.
Yeah.
So, because I find like if I compare that to eating a sandwich versus eating one of those grain-based salads, I feel so much different an hour, 2 hours later going into the afternoon. It can
Yeah.
make a big difference.
Yeah. It just
Mhm,
makes you just feel that
mhm.
much more satisfied. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great stuff. Well, thank you so much, Bettina, for all of the tips and tools that you shared today. So we have recorded this. We will put it up in case you missed part of it or want to view the rest of it later. And also, I just want to let you know that we do have a couple of extra additional webinars coming up over the next couple of months. One May 5th on critical conversations with Ruth Ann Weeks around mental health, which is perfect around Mental Health Week. And then we have one on May 19th, and I'll actually be speaking at that one instead of hosting the webinar on how leaders can support resiliency and mental health through disruption. And oh, I'm seeing lots more tips that people are coming in here. So, anyways, we'll send out those links to those events that are coming up. If any of you are a first responder or know anybody who is a first responder, we also have some great complimentary webinars that are coming up that have been made possible by the government of Alberta. So they're in Alberta. So if you're not in Alberta, I apologize. And they're going to be online on July 9th and July 23rd. So we have a really great engaging speaker who's going to be talking about trauma and mental health and resilience for first responders. All right. So thank you so much again, everybody. And thank you so much to Bettina and 12 Weeks to Wellness and Curtis and Charles and 12 Weeks and sorry. Curtis Health. So there's so many great tips and supports that are available through their resources. So I'll send links to those so everybody has those available as well. So have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.